This is my grandfather, my Grandpa Meyer. Um, he was in the Army in, what year?
45.
1945. And I guess we'll start. Are you ready?
All ready.
Okay. Were you drafted for the Army or did you volunteer
I was drafted in the Army
in 1945?
in 1945.
And you were how old?
I was 17.
Okay. How many family members did you have that preceded you in the war?
That was in the war.
Yeah.
I had 4.
They're your brothers?
They were my brothers,
All older than you?
all over me.
And where did they serve at?
Let's see. 2 of them served over in the East, Japan, and the islands. And one of them served in Germany.
What did you do in the Army?
What did I do? I was, after I got out of my basic training, I became a cook
Was that
in
fun?
the service. Well, I wasn't a cook very long. I was in the Quartermaster Corps, which is part of the cooks.
Mhm.
When I was drafted, I went through basic training, and then I had my choice of 3 things, either truck driver, mechanic, or cook. And I put down truck driver as my first choice, mechanic as my second, and cook as my third. And that's what I got, cook. So I went through cook and baker school, and before I could get assigned to a certain kitchen, I was to be sent overseas to Japan, Yokohama, Japan. Okay?
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
And did you make it over to Japan?
I did not make it over to Japan. The reason why I didn't make it to Japan, they sent me to Camp Stoneman, California.
Mm-hmm.
And right after we arrived at Camp Stoneman, they decided to close the camp. So they put us on a troop train to Seattle. And that's where I did my cooking, on a troop train from Camp Stoneman to Fort Lawton, Washington, Seattle.
Mm-hmm.
I was in Fort Lawton, Washington for approximately 10 months. And during that time, I applied for staying stateside to my previous brother being killed over in Germany. At Fort Lawton, I had a chaplain that was helping me get my papers for staying stateside.
Mm-hmm.
So all my buddies that I went through training with and everything, they were sent to Yokohama, Japan.
Mm-hmm.
So then I had to stay at Fort Lawton until I got my orders, and then they sent me to Fort Sheridan, Illinois, which was close to home.
Did anyone did your mother help you get your request? Did she write letters and stuff to the government?
No, the chaplain. The chaplain did all because he was an Army chaplain,
Mm-hmm.
and he was the one that took care of getting all the papers and everything worked out. My mom wanted me to come home, but he was the one that got all my papers and everything.
So once you got to Fort Sheridan, what did you do?
When I got to Fort Sheridan, they put me in the kitchen working as a cook. Mostly, though, I pulled KP duty.
Oh.
So that was, and my biggest job was taking care of the coffee urine. But then I got sick while I was in Fort Sheridan after I got there, and I was in the hospital for almost 2 months. And when I got out of the hospital, then they told me that I was going to be discharged for President Nixon declared that there was no need for any more draftees to be in the service, so he let us all be discharged in 1946.
This is after the war was over, right?
This was after the war was over. Right.
So everybody that was drafted was told they were honorably discharged?
Not everybody. I mean, you could stay in if you wanted to, but being as I just got out of the hospital and everything, I was ready to come. But the reason why I was in the hospital, I had caught pneumonia.
Oh.
And that's the reason why I was in the hospital. But anyway, that's the reason why I went ahead and took my discharge.
I see. What kind of weapons were carried back then?
We were carried the old Springfield rifles,
Still?
but
They weren't.
they're obsolete right now. They're really obsolete.
Okay. Tell me about the day that you remember that Pearl Harbor was bombed.
Pearl Harbor was bombed. I wasn't in the service yet, but I had heard about it. Kind of wondered then whether how many was going to be called to the service and what actually was going to happen. But I did hear that prior to this, a lot of the veterans that was in Germany was sent over to Japan to help to get it settled, because the war was already over in Germany. So they sent most of these men over to Japan to try to get it settled, but then they dropped the bomb and that ended it right then. So.
In the last day of Hitler, do you think that we should have acted faster knowing where he was? Do you think we should have went in after him and acted faster than we did?
Well, in my opinion, what I can remember today, because most of this took place 50 years ago, he was, back in the 30s, he was being in the rain over Germany and building all this up. And I think that most of the countries that was involved, they should have acted a lot sooner than what they did before he got a big stronghold like he did. And but everybody wanted to be cautious and not have too many people killed, but yet he still got his stronghold built, and that what kept the war going on.
Do you believe that it was wrong to put the bomb on Hiroshima and Nagasaki? Do you think that we should just, if we were going to bomb, then just bomb Hiroshima and not Nagasaki? Or do you think we should have bombed both of them like we did?
Well, I think that was a good thing that happened. It settled the war real quick. It could have been drawn off for more years and years and years. I think if they had it, they probably would have did the same thing in Germany to try to end it, because it had been going on for years. So I think, in my opinion, that was the best thing that happened. I know there's a lot of innocent people got killed, but I think this is what helped us solve most of the nation's problems as far as the war is concerned.
Do you think that they should have kept the bomb as much of a secret as they did? Or do you think they should have let people in on what was going on?
No, they should have kept it a secret like they did.
You think?
Yeah.
That's correct. I think they did the right thing by keeping it a secret.
Right.
Tell me a little bit about the home front during the war.
The home front? Well, the home front during the war, I remember back then, we used to have gas ration cards. Sugar, you couldn't hardly buy any sugar. Tires, you couldn't buy no new tires. You had to buy old junk tires and patch them. I do remember that. The gasoline that you did get wasn't that much. You couldn't go no place. You got more if you used your car for work purposes, but I know that most people, they couldn't take no vacations, they couldn't go no trips because of the gas problem, because it just wasn't there. A lot of people back then, they go what they call victory gardens for food, and because the prices were so high. And as far as it was tough times, because we were just getting out of depression when this all took place, and the economy started booming because they was needing so many military supplies. So then the economy started booming, and people started, more jobs was available. Because back then they had CCC camps that the government put up for people to work, to make money, because there was no jobs. And it was really bad back then. I do remember that. But anyway, then when the war came in, everything started progressing, and people got jobs, and money started flowing, and everything, the country started coming back on its feet.
How did this affect your life in a whole?
I mean, the whole area is being the wars and so
The
forth.
Depression and the war, and then the war being over.
Well, during the Depression and so forth, we had to do with a lot of things that we just didn't have. There was no toys for us kids, back then, because in the Depression days, I was real small back then. And then as we grew older, and then the service, as I said, things started to progress, and people started buying more things, because then they took the rationing off, and you could buy sugar and all this kind of thing, and you started eating better. You could buy more stuff in the stores because everybody made a little bit more money, and that helped to influence the whole country.
Do you think that the war helped get us out of the Depression, or do you think the war was caused from the Depression?
Well, the war helped us get out of the Depression because it created so many jobs. All of this military, the tanks and the ships and the planes and ammunition, and because I remember back then they used to have ammunition places all over the country. They stored it. They just kept building it and building it and building it. And the same way with all their equipment, their military equipment. Everything just kept growing and growing, and they had to have some place to put it. And that's what kept everybody going, because the war created all these jobs.
What are your feelings now about everything that happened?
Well, my feelings right now, the way I see it, is that everything that took place back then was very sad, but the Bible says there's going to be wars and rumors of wars as long as we live. And I think that there's probably going to be another one before very long, because it's been several years since we've had a war. And the country is in a shape of like going into depression again, and it's going to take another war to bring us back out. I hate to see it coming, but I know that this is the way everything reacts. As soon as your countries get down to a certain category of depression, and then boom, you would go into war, and then you start everything starts to come out again.
Do you think it would be as big as World War II?
Oh, don't think it'd be as big, because they have so many more what do you call it, military ways of doing things. For instance, they can find targets at night with an airplane. The ships will sail further. They got satellites in the sky that can pinpoint certain things. It's just so more far advanced than it was back then in World War II. And I know these other countries are getting some of the same things, but it just, I don't think that that's going to be as bad. If it is, it's going to be a nuclear war. And that's just what everybody's afraid of. If a nuclear war ever takes place, we could be involved very much so in our own country.
So you think the U.S. will set off another atomic bomb if the war got big enough?
Atomic bomb is nothing anymore compared to some of these that they've got now. I mean, it's devastating. I mean, it's really bad, but it's not. Well, they can send missiles for thousands of miles, and the atomic bomb, you got to take it by airplane and drop it, and they can shoot you out of the sky before you even get close to it.
That's true.
With a missile. So, like I say, these missiles and everything is getting so far advanced. And, like I say, you don't even have to be in this country. They could shoot it from another country and get us. So I think one of these years is just going to be in our country instead of all over seas.
Well, that's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.